I'll introduce Payman to the stage for a session about future-proofing enterprise architecture. Enjoy, everybody.
Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Hope you had a great lunch. I thought we use analogy at the start of this session a little bit to resonate with enterprise architecture. So enterprise architecture in banking right now is like guiding a massive ship in the middle of a storm in the ocean. The winds are AI, blowing faster and faster every day. The waves are customer expectations and growing taller and taller. And the ship's old engine and rusted structure is like your legacy systems. They are huge, static, and immovable. So while you cannot rebuild the ship in the middle of the ocean, but you can reinforce in certain way with some actions to empower the ship to get to your destination. So in this session, we are going to review 4 practical steps, strategic but practical steps with the power of MongoDB that you can apply toward building adaptable and future-proof architecture and get your ship to the destination. Let's get started. So why enterprise architecture matters today? So when we look at the history of enterprise architecture, started from thinking about having perspective around the enterprise, both application, data, and all the assets that we have across the technology. So we decided to have a blueprint of all the things across the organization. And once we had that blueprint, we had kind of first level of understanding the enterprise from technology perspective. So we had a blueprint, and now we can make enhanced decisions around technology selection, the choices that we have, but also govern the technology in some form or shape that we don't end up with hundreds of variations of the same technology. So a little bit moving forward, we thought we can optimize the cost by having the enterprise architecture, because then we can have a better decision, and then cost optimization will be part of the scope. And then reduce the complexity overall, because now we have that global perspective. Few years later, IT became real partner of the business, and then the role of enterprise architecture changed to be aligning strategic priorities between technology and business. And these priorities sometimes is different, because technology traditionally focus on stability and technology governance and cost reduction. But on the business side, priorities were getting faster to the market, customer satisfaction, and regulatory requirement. So over time, innovation and agility, fast forward today, become a critical function of enterprise architecture. If you consider enterprise architecture practice is a long-term and visionary practice, but AI is here, all sorts of changes coming down the pipe, and how do we make enterprise architecture adaptable and responding to those changes without losing all the aspects, all those characteristics that you can see on the screen. So these are layers of enterprise architecture: business, application, data, infrastructure, and security. And these layers are going through tremendous amount of transformation over the course of past few years with the cloud and now with the AI. So all these layers need to work smoothly together in order to have the right enterprise architecture practice and right enterprise architecture in general in banking. However, what we see, a lot of challenges with the data layer, because there are rigid schemas in there that are 40 years old technology. They are slow to adapt to the data changes. Every time you need to change the data, you have to go through a massive process of making sure nothing else breaks. And also, limited scalability. If your data grows, you face a lot of challenges with the scalability of that data. And that's where MongoDB comes to play to support these challenges and address these challenges. With the flexible document model that we introduced, you can change the data structure on the fly, and there is no downtime when you change the data structure compared to traditional database technologies. And we brought the experience of application and data together, because where you structure your data in MongoDB is a JSON reflection of your application objects. There's no ORM between to map the data and application. They are directly mapping. And then not only that create efficiency in terms of productivity of development lifecycle, it's also improve the performance. But things doesn't stop there. So as you can see on the screen here, there are number of database and data platform capabilities are merged in one offering as part of one package. Not only supports the real-time operational data use cases, we also support time series, which are very popular in financial services, the data that is time-bound, with very efficient ingestion and retrieval. You saw in the keynotes, the new version of MongoDB is 200 times faster in terms of time series. And time series is used a lot, quite a bit in financial services. But variation of different search capabilities, vector search, text search, and hybrid capability around search. So real-time analytics, stream processing, and embedding and re-ranking with the recent acquisition of Voyage AI. And this is running on top of a foundation that is flexible in terms of where the data is, whether you run it on the laptop, or you run it in the cloud, or you run it on-prem, the experience stays the same. And on top of a robust resiliency and security. So when you compare these layers to enterprise architecture layers, not only MongoDB support the data layer of that in terms of agility and innovation, but also try to help other layers to be more flexible and responsive. So, but what is the attribute of new desired architecture these days? So these are pillars of well-architected framework, and majority of you are familiar with that. So all the hyperscaler, they have definition of that. We do have it in Mongo in our architecture center. But these days, and these are fundamentally really good practices and the best practices to build solutions, but these days there are new requirements with rise of AI and push for innovation. There are other capabilities that make your architecture more flexible, more composable, more interaction in the seamless way, and then event-driven architecture that create less dependencies and decoupled services give you more flexibility on the application side and ability to run your data anywhere, and you don't have constraint around that. So combination of these capabilities make a good foundation for building next generation application, and that's what we see across the industry with the rise of AI. You need this capability to be augmented to your well-architected framework to be able to respond to those changes more effectively. So a data architecture is multifaceted. It's very broad. So when you look at capabilities like data ingestion, data storage, retrieval of that data, and retention of that data, the full cycle of data management is a workflow that you need to consider when you design data architecture. But also, you need to think about data visualization, data security, data quality, data lineage. There are many aspects to a data design when you go to design your data architecture. But things doesn't stop there, because now we are facing, with the rise of AI, we are facing unprecedented amount of unstructured data that we need to handle. Document, text, images, videos, audios. So the data solution need to be able to natively support unstructured data together with the structured data and semi-structured. And the best use cases you find in banking and your business is when you have a hybrid solution that combine all these capabilities. There's another aspect of that to the business definition of that data. If the data is for customer or for operational purpose or for analytics purpose, so you have another set of capability depending on your use case that you need to consider. So if you look at all this together when you design your data enterprise, it's complex. It's not an easy task, but it doesn't need to be overwhelming. So, and MongoDB demystify some of these challenges, and in this presentation, we're going to go through that. This is BIAN, Banking Industry Architecture Network domain diagram. The purpose of this is not for you to read it, just to show this scale. So BIAN is there to promote modularity, standardization across banking services, and reusability. But if we convert this to a more readable format and be a little bit of capability map in the IT-oriented kind of scheme, what you can see, system of record, system of insight, and system of engagement. And these systems, they all have various components in the banking. And these boxes, what you see there, may contain hundreds of applications, gigantic amount of infrastructure to support them. So making decision around any of the enterprise capability become more critical, because if a decision is wrong, will have profound impact. But on the right side, you see partner and customers. So this is your integration layer with external behind your closed doors. And this become even more important these days, because not only you need to respond to the customer integration requirement, it also enhance your business from partnership and fintech and integration, especially in the banking, and other capability that you miss if you are not able to integrate with them. So not only you have to have a sound architecture internally, but your integration points also needs to be solid and well thought out. With the rise of AI now, there's a new paradigm. So the paradigm of systems of action. And this paradigm is getting introduced just recently, and where the agents and human work together on top of data and constantly interact with the data to create a different experience for the customers. And the system of actions eventually will replace part of other systems, especially system of engagement, because that engagement model with the AI agent is a different type of engagement. It's a constant interaction, and that's why you see things like MCP server, unstructured data, events, and API, because part of that package is to make that dynamic interaction between agents and human, which is human-centric kind of interaction at the end. So I wanted to mention this because you will hear about system of actions, throughout, and there is a possibility that you need to deal with systems of action differently because it requires different capabilities. But in banking, enterprise architecture is more challenging. And I listed 6 of those challenges here. There are probably more, but majority of the large banks dealing still with over 85% legacy system that needs to be modernized. So there's huge amount of technical debt. So data is fragmented. Even in the best cases, you have all the data for your department under one umbrella, but when you look at the entire bank, there's no single view, or it's challenging to get that single view of customer data, for example. So financial organizations are target for cybersecurity and fraud all the time, so you have to make sure whatever you do in fraud detection and cybersecurity is top-notch. Highly regulated environment, there's no question about that. But when it comes to innovation versus stability, you always have to trade off, because you don't want to have an outage with the cost of being innovative. So you want to make sure whenever you innovate, you still keep the resiliency, because all your customers expect dial tone availability and close to 100% availability, 5 nines, 4 nines from your services. And the scale of banking on its own, it's another challenge to deal with. So if you're implementing something in proof of concept is different or smaller scale compared to the large scale when you have millions of customers to support. So now we're going to review 4 steps toward innovation-ready enterprise architecture. And these steps are more thought-provoking, more strategic, but you can apply it. It's very practical. So the first step is to establish flexible data-centric architecture. And what do I mean by that? So create flexibility in your data layer from all aspects. The first aspect is ability to change data on the fly with no downtime and create a flexible schema structure that can support your application in real time. So as your application are changing, so your data needs to evolve with the application the same way. So when you go and change your code inside the application and you have a release and it's very agile and innovative, you want your data to react the same way. With the flexible schema, you can do that. The second part is about independence from where the data is. So I understand that some of use cases, they have data sovereignty or data location requirement, but when you design your architecture, you want to think about if this data move from on-prem, let's say, to the cloud, what would be the impact? Or if you need to run it locally, what would be the impact? And you want to create a data structure or a data architecture rather than which is flexible in terms of location and where does it run. At the same time, the performance and high availability is part of non-negotiable. But one thing that I want to also mention in terms of flexibility is the scalability of your database and your data solution. The only thing that's going to happen to the data is going to grow. And when you look at what's happening in the AI landscape with a lot of unstructured data, that growth is exponential. And if you don't have horizontal scalability, you're gonna face some challenges. And the horizontal scalability, that needs to be seamless and no constraint horizontal scalability. A lot of data solutions offer vertical scalability, and it costs a lot to vertically scale. But when it comes to horizontal scalability, because MongoDB support distributed architecture, we cover horizontal scalability through sharding, and that's a key capability. This is an example of anti-money laundering and KYC solution that high-level design of a converged data store using MongoDB, empowered by flexible schema and document model of Mongo, where the data sets that you need to bring in is combination of structured and unstructured data. So today, the KYC and AML is beyond just your structured data that you have in your database. Sometimes you need to go to the third party and acquire unstructured data, like social media data, to see what's happening in the behavior of the customer, for example. Or sometimes you do ID validation or fingerprint validation or picture validation. These are all unstructured data that you need to be able to handle. For the AML, you may need to ingest some data in terms of sanction list or some social media related data or something about the device or location of the device that making a payment or data that is kind of hybrid in nature. Part of that is unstructured, part of that is structured. And ability to bring all that data set together in part of converged data store, which can handle those data natively, but also you don't need to have a downtime every time you change that data, because you have external dependency in this world, and every time an external party is changing, you don't want to have an impact in changing data structure internally. So this is an example of how MongoDB empowered new solution for AML and KYC. The second step is enable AI by design. So every single new application that you guys are building, you need to think about AI. And not just think about technology side of it, think about what business problem you're trying to solve, but make a foundation for your AI journey from the get-go. And don't try to patch the AI on top of your legacy, because down the road, you're gonna have problem. So there are 3 characteristics in AI that are really, really important. Number one is about your pipelines. So the data ingestion, the data that's used for AI, as I mentioned, more than 85% is going to be in form of unstructured data, but it's also in the form of streaming data. For example, if you're handling tweet messages or social media messages in the form of streaming, and you need to be able to handle those streaming use cases in order to ingest that data. But that type of data is also real time. So if a tweet message is for yesterday, it may not have enough value to be maintained anymore. So the data solution that you're building for AI need to be able to respond in real time to those pipeline data that you bring in. But at the same time, has to be all variation of different channels like different APIs, mobile, web integration. So the pipeline for AI data is really one of the major considerations when you think about your AI workload. The second aspect of this is ability to retrieve the data in a meaningful way, because if this data is partly unstructured data, you need to think about contextual meaning of that data in order to implement your AI use cases. And specialized retrieval capabilities like vector search, and then combining that with specialized embedding like Voyage AI that we mentioned here earlier, and capability around re-ranking. Those are key capabilities, specialized capability, and we brought those capabilities to the database layer to make your life easier. So now we have vector search available on Atlas, and as well as the Voyage AI integration is coming. So you need to think about, specialized capability around retrieval of the data that is going to be used by AI. And also agentic AI. Agentic is about the agents that can plan a workflow, a complex workflow. They have ability to do reasoning and action. And for agentic world, because the agents are stateful, so you need to think about what is the right solution to store short-term, long-term memory of those agents, because you want to have continuity in the interaction with the AI workload and the agents. And these agents, they have ability also to interface with different tools. So when you're building the data solution for AI, you want to make sure that it can interface with external and internal data set, but at the same time, you can bring in whatever framework that is well suited for your use case to be easily and seamlessly integrated. So integration of agentic AI frameworks, and also making sure you have a persistent layer for AI agents is really key in the consideration. So some of the use cases around AI that we see these days, like personalized customer service or replacing old version of chatbots with the new type of AI assistant for your customer support. There's a lot of discussion around risk management and modeling and behavioral analysis, whether that's your customer behavior or transaction behavior, for example, in payment. Those are the use cases that will touch all of these points. And portfolio management and wealth management as well, asset reallocation. These agents will be able to give you much better decision-making capability, but still human in the loop. Because in financial services, a lot of these AI use cases are very sensitive in terms of financial decision-making, and you want to make sure at the end of the day, it's a human who makes those decisions. And also to trust the AI and increase the trustworthiness of the answers, if you don't have capability that are specialized for AI, like vector search and embedding and the right models to use, so you don't have the right foundation to build your AI use cases and deliver AI use cases in future. And one of the things that to consider in your AI journey, always measure the ROI on the AI, because there's hype right now around agentic and AI, and so you want to be practical from business terms and make sure whatever you implement, it creates value for your business. So this is what we see the state of Gen AI across the industries and in banking. So a couple years ago, LLMs were introduced and everybody tried to come up with the use cases. Majority of use cases were around customer support or content generation or personal productivity. In stage 2, now those solutions getting combined with the RAG and embedding and in the form of corporate GPTs or more enterprise grade and getting to production. That's where I would say 70% of the large banking clients are today in stage 1 and 2. But what's happening in the industry between fintech and more innovative financial institutions, they are moving fast to step 3 and 4. And they are deploying these agents to production. So the gap between what's happening in the larger organization and what's happening in the industry is getting wider and wider. And that's concerning because at some point, organizations won't be able to keep up. And for example, if you don't have any agentic AI strategy or you're not thinking about that, it's time to start looking at that and time to plan for it. This is an example of agentic AI workflow for credit card application processing. So in this solution, there are 3 agents that work in collaboration and human in the loop at the end will make the decision. The first agent is client-facing agent where extract the application data and request from customer and validate the account and make sure it's a valid request for a new credit card. The second agent in the middle is responsible for credit scoring and making sure that customer is validated in terms of credit score and other criteria that you have in place to be able to offer that credit card. And the third agent in the end will make the matching between the product and the type of customer that is qualified for that product. And then because there is financial impact and critical use case here, human in the loop, an operational person in the bank can approve that workflow. If you look at the top of this workflow, what we used to have in terms of structured data. But at the bottom of this, it creates and open up new opportunities for you to handle unstructured data in more seamless way, combining with the agents. And MongoDB here create a data foundation for all different type of data, structured data, unstructured data, or semi-structured data. And not only provide that, it brings AI-ready architecture for your agent implementation to be seamless and effective. Step 3 is about interoperability and interaction with external world. And this kind of go back to the diagram that I show you in terms of customer and partner and fintech integration that you need to think about. So many of the banks started with API first strategy and it's been in play for a couple of years now. So you probably, most likely if you're from banking industry, so you have an API program and think about API. So the benefit of that is it creates flexibility in your application. Same way you create flexibility in the data, now you think about application. How do I make application flexible? And combining that with business protocols in terms of interoperability. The protocol like ISO 20022 or Swift MX or FTX or PSD2 for open banking. So these are all business protocols similar to API that focuses on interoperability of the businesses together. So not only you think about API first strategy from technology perspective, but also combine that with the business protocols that promote modularity and interoperability and composability. When you combine the two, it's going to be very powerful. And you also want to have application design in a way that they are event-driven. You want to decouple them in a way that you have flexibility, not only with API, but also flexibility in terms of interaction between the applications, and give you an edge and leverage. But as you open up your APIs, there are two areas you need to think about very seriously. A lot of customers that we talk to, they don't have API management solution. So they have all these API created, but they don't have a centralized place to manage and govern these APIs. And then at the same time, API security is really important, because as you open up these APIs, and whether they are technical APIs or business protocols, you want to have the right and sound security posture in place. It's an example of MongoDB operational data layers. In the middle, you can see MongoDB with all the capabilities. So really, beyond just a database, is a data platform with comprehensive set of capabilities to enable your innovation journey. On the left side, you see the system of records, and these could be mainframe, could be your legacy system, and you can interact and bring the data to this middle layer that is operational and real time to implement the use cases similar to AI or across all our customers base. We see a lot of that in payment processing, for example, when they have a legacy mainframe system of record and they're not able to respond to innovative changes, and you create a data layer in front of those legacy systems, mask those complexity, let those legacy systems implement their own modernization, and sometimes it's over years, and now you have MongoDB in the middle that you can easily implement APIs on top, synchronize the data to Mongo as you need through things like stream processing or Kafka connectors or CDC patterns if you have legacy databases. And then on the right side, you can integrate with your ecosystem through API. If you have an API management system, then you can basically control and govern those interactions. You can bring not only AI models that you need, but also different type of third-party data that you want to bring in for your AI or other workload. And then we offer the SQL interface for data visualization. If you have Tableau or Power BI, you can integrate that easily. So by implementing this MongoDB in the middle, a real-time operational data layer, it gives you flexibility without touching anything in your enterprise. You immediately enable with a layer that you can innovate. And as you get more familiar with MongoDB, if you're not a customer, and the trust goes up, then the workload in the middle can go up to the level that can replace the system of records. And the fourth step is really about simplifying architecture. And there are a lot of single-purpose bolt-on solutions that are built for one purpose. So there are variation of different database technology or different capability around data that is built for one only purpose. And you can think about consolidating those capability that will simplify your architecture. But sometimes the things that apply to the data product also applies to the processes around data, and think about automation of those processes. And where it's possible, sometimes we forget that IT is a line of business as well, and we use a lot of data. So, and what are the opportunities for those consolidating those data and also automate processes around that? And once you simplify your architecture, you become more efficient, and in terms of cost optimization, you are better cost optimized. Years ago, I had this experience that I was thinking about, what is this simplification that everybody is talking about in technology? It's hard because we are living in a very complex world. How do we simplify? And really, I come to this conclusion that simplification is really finding simple patterns in a complex world that we're in. So, and I'll show you an example of that. So this is an example of fragmented and redundant architecture. So you probably saw something like that in the industry. So multiple ETLs, multiple data bases, different type of data storage for different purpose. And you can see time series, key value databases, and also search engines for your search requirement. And this type of architecture is very, very popular, but is not effective. And when you look at it across a large bank, it's replicated across different departments, it's getting actually worse and worse. If you don't do anything about simplification of your architecture, the only thing that's going to happen to it is going to get worse. So this is how we reduce the complexity in MongoDB platform. So we consolidate various different technologies and capability to one platform. And that's been part of our strategy, to make your life easier. And these are driven by what our customers are asking us. So you can see AI-oriented capabilities, but there are all sorts of key value text search. In fact, combination of text search and vector search completely can replace other search engines that you have and bring a simple kind of architecture and one package solution to your enterprise architecture. So when you look at the top part, so all these products are nobody's fault that you are running it, because they are introduced over time, over a number of years, and now you inherited all this. So it's a time potentially for consolidation at some point, depending on what is feasible from your side. But if for each of these products, you need to purchase them, you need to learn them, you need to maintain, you need to patch. So when you look at the cost of ownership for all this solution compared to MongoDB, you have significant cost efficiencies by doing this type of consolidation, but it become more effective because also from talent perspective, people get trained on one platform rather than 10 or 20 or hundreds of different platforms. So you can see embedding and re-ranking is there. That's part of our strategy. We acquired Voyage AI, and we are in the process of integrating that to the database offering. So here you go. The 4 steps are really making your data flexible, making your application flexible, embracing AI, and being ready to practice and implement the AI solutions and simplify your architecture. The simplification sometimes is the hardest one, because you can make a decision about consolidating something or consolidating multiple databases, but it's going to take some time in order to do that in practice. But this is the recipe to make the architecture future-proof and innovation ready. So our customers in financial services, we support more than 3,000 banks in financial services and more than 5,000 customers in FSI. So they trusted us and they achieved this kind of KPIs you see on the screen. It's all about productivity, all about agility, and all about flexibility on top of a platform that has resiliency. 5.9 or 4.9 availability is very popular in banking, and that's offered to you as part of the platform with our replica set, fully by configuration, totally transparent to your application, highly performant. Majority of the cases that people transform their traditional databases to MongoDB come with a performance gain. And then simplify. You see the example here, we're talking about going from 2,200 tables to 90 collections in flexible document model that MongoDB offers. So less moving part you have, more simpler workflow, all combined together. Not only you simplify and have a better architecture, you also have a more cost-effective solution here. I want to leave you with a couple of steps that if you go back to your office tomorrow, you can take some actions. Number 1 is evaluate your current state architecture in terms of consolidation and inflexibility. What are the areas of enterprise architecture for both data and application that you have and that you think they are inflexible today. At least you have a gap analysis done and you understand what are the possibility of quick wins. If you need to consolidate, let's say, 20 different databases to one database solution, so what are those? Try to identify those gaps, and at least you have a map. The second, you can plan for some of those changes. As I mentioned, a lot of first API initiatives in the banking today, and a lot of applications, new applications that are built, moving toward event-driven architecture, but create that flexibility at the data layer as well. So the data layer that requires downtime every time you change the data structure doesn't sound right for your, as a future data platform for you. And especially with the AI workload, so you want to embrace and be ready to be able to respond to the AI workload. And embracing that, first step is to make sure the data platform that you use can provide and support a specific and a specialized capability like vector search, like embedding, like RAG solution, and like agentic, seamlessly integrated or have it as part of the solution that simplify the workflow for your developers and the workflow of your future applications. And keep in mind, AI is not going to be the last innovation. So as you make these steps and make your enterprise architecture flexible, you are paving the way for future innovation. And that's I'm going to leave you with. So this is the QR code. If you want to see what we have done in financial services, there's plenty of use cases, white papers, customer stories, and because we have a very strong footprint across the banking, we have literally thousands of use cases. If you have a use case in mind, come and talk to us, and we probably have done it already for some of our clients. And this is the end of the pack. Thank you for listening, and great to have you here. Thank you.